Well, we've got an awesome way to kick us off over here on the Shorthorn Plus side, and I'm sure excited to get to be with you here this afternoon. I have really been looking forward to this show, and we start off with a really nice class and a good trio of heifers that we've got out here. Really, a top pair of them that I think are very close and very competitive. The young lady's blue roan heifer that I'm going to go ahead and lead off with. I do like this one's build. I think she is awesome structured, and whenever you study her in relation to the one that's coming right in behind her, she's just a little bit better in the set of her shoulder. She maintains her top line with more consistency whenever we get them in motion. And she's got my favorite hip and hind leg design of the trio that we've got out here. And then on top of that, to go along with it, she's bolder and more genuine in her body shape than the one that's coming right in behind her. And I still think that heifer gives you a really nice look of balance from the side. I think a really nice one to go ahead and kick us off here in the first class of the day. Spotted up heifer that's coming out here in second. Young lady, I love that heifer at the standstill. That is one good-looking rig that's awesome-necked and really, really neat from her shoulder forward. I love her head shape, love her neck set. She is so neat there in her neckline and her chest floor, and her silhouette and profile is awesome, and you have done such a good job getting her presented out here, and she's maxed out in regard to her presentation. Whenever we get her in motion, she's not quite as good in the set of her shoulder. She'll want to roll up in her top line just a little bit whenever we get them going. And then in comparison to the one that we lead off with, she's just not quite as stout whenever you get right up on top of her. Really, the heifer that's coming out here in third that's going to wrap us up here in this class, get up on top of them and get behind them. She's actually got a little more shape and a little more spread and muscle. She's a little green. She just needs a little more time and maturity because of the three that we've got out here, she's a little harder bodied. She's a little greener in her rib. We need to square her up out of her hip, and she's not as attractive in the set of her hind leg as the pair that go out ahead of her. But I do think an awesome way to kick us off here in our Shorthorn Plus show. Congratulations to those three young ladies on a nice job. Another really, really good class to work throughout here. There's sure some differences in type and kind on down the lineup in here, but for me, I think a class that falls together really, really nicely. The young lady's black heifer that's going to go ahead and start off. This one, I really like her quality. She's moderate, she's big ribs, she's good balance, she's good build. I like her structure. I do think we've got the two of them that are a little bit better in terms of their feet and leg structure and their look and refinement. And then our class winner, she just takes that to a more overwhelming level in terms of her rib and her body. She's way better from her shoulder into her heart and her forerib or midrib and flank, and a little stouter and punchier whenever you get in behind her. So of the two good balanced, good built ones, we've got a little more horsepower in the one that we're leading off with. Now from the side, I really like the refinement. I like the extra extension of the heifer that's coming out here in second. I think projecting these out long term, she has a tremendous amount of good to work off of. And as she continues to body down, as she continues to stouten up, I think that one's going to be really, really good because she is awesome looking. She is very refined. She's better structured than the one that's coming right in behind her. Doesn't have as much bone, a little tighter in her heart and forerib, doesn't maintain her top line quite as good without as much just real dimension as our class winner, but I still like that one's build and design just a shade better than the one coming behind her. One coming out here in third, she's moderate, she's bold-bodied, she's got a ton of dimension. This is actually the heaviest muscled heifer that we've got in the class. With that, she's a little plainer headed. Like to see a little more refinement about her head shape whenever we get her in motion. She's a little shorter, rounder out of her hip, and a bit more rigid in the way that she sits down from behind. Another real good looking long necked one that's coming out here next, that from the profile, I like her extension. I like her extra bones. This young man does a nice job getting her shown. From her shoulder back, she needs to come with just more real dimension and more body shape. She comes off just a little harder and a little skinnier just in terms of her body shape. Congratulations, though. Another nice class of them. This is a really, really good class over here on the Shorthorn Plus side, and probably for me, the most challenge and the most depth of quality that we've seen in our classes so far. And I think there's some really, really good ones up here on the top end, and really 1 to 5 here in this class. I really think you can find good in each and every one of these heifers, and that's what makes it tough. Whenever I kind of got it boiled down to our initial trio out here, the one that's going to go ahead and lead off for me, this one just has the least amount of question marks in comparison to the ones that are coming in behind her. That is one wild looking one that is awesome in her balance from the side. I love her look up front. She hooks up stronger and more consistent in her top line than the one that's coming right in behind her. I love the shape of her body, the depth and the sweep that she's got back through her rear rib and flank. And we get that one into motion. She's got good feet and she sits them down and she can get out and motor. I love that heifer structure. And so whenever you talk about building one long term that I think is going to keep getting better and better, whenever you got that kind of look, that kind of presence, that kind of body type and structure, I think that one's going to get real, real good on down the line. Now, the heifer here in second, I think she's another one that really mirrors our class winners look up front. I think she's got a really neat presence to her in her head shape, her neck set. She is no-chested. I mean, she is really neat in her neckline and in her chest floor, really the same kind of rib and body type of the one that we lead off with. There's times where she's not quite as consistent in her top line balance as the one that we lead off with. She'll kind of get just a little off there behind her shoulder blade. I don't know if she's tucked quite as neat there in the lay of her shoulder, and then the way that she hooks up right in behind her blade. Every now and then, the longer that she stays out here, she'll get just a little lax right there. But I'm telling you what, that's a pair of good ones that are coming out there in 1 and 2. The one that's coming out here in 3, I like this heifer's dimension. I like her extra stoutness whenever you get up on top of these cattle and get in behind them. I actually think she's built with some spread and some shape all the way down her back and out of her hip. And again, at the standstill, I think that one's got a lot of look and a lot of quality. We get her in motion. She's just a nickel straight in the angle of her shoulder. She's not as long out of her hip. She's not as good in her rear foot shape, and so she just doesn't set down quite as good in her rear ankle as those two that go out ahead of her. The blue roan heifer coming out next is moderate and big ribbed. I love that about her. A little shorter fronted, a little plainer neck. She gets just a shade rounder out of her hip with a little more set to her hind leg, and maybe doesn't set down just perfect in her rear ankle every time. The one that we're going to round out with, love this heifer's rib and her body, needs a shade more bone. She gets just a little off right there where her neck ties into her shoulder and runs downhill just a shot. She gets a little coarse in her tailhead. In a class that's this tough, we just need to change a few of those things from a balance standpoint to work her up spot or two. But that was an awesome class. Depth of quality, 1 to 5 in there was very good. Nice job to those exhibitors. Well, a good class of them that we've got out here. Again, some different types and kinds on down the lineup. I really think a nice pair of them that really hit me hard. Both of them coming in the gate and good first impression kind of cattle. Although both of them I think are really, really good, I still think it's pretty clear cut to go ahead and get this dark red heifer started. I love that one's balance. I love her body type. I like that one's structure. She's stouter structured and she's better structured than the one that's coming right in behind her. Better in the set of her shoulder. She's just more athletic in the use of her hip and her hind leg, and the way that she sits down in her hock and her rear ankle is more secure, is more athletic, it's more flexible, and it's just stouter. And I like that about her. Love her rib and her body type. That heifer, you get off to the side of her. Her balance is really neat as well. The heifer that's coming out here in second, I actually like her head and her ear set just a little bit better. She's a little stouter jawed. Man, she is gorgeous in the shape of her head and her ear set. That one is maxed out from a presentation standpoint, standing right here. I love that one's look. I love her design. Her level of quality, I think, is awesome from the side. She's a little smaller footed than the one that we lead off with. She's not as good in the set of her shoulder. We get her in motion. She'll want to roll up in her top, and she wants to get just a nickel round her out of her hip. And her hind leg set is not as attractive, and it's not as good and flexible as the one that we lead off with. But I do think a nice pair of them that you got to get up towards the top of this class pretty quick, because both of those heifers have a lot of quality. Real stout and bold one in the roan heifer that's coming out here next. From her shoulder back, I like her boldness of body. I like her extra dimension. She does not lack for power out here from her shoulder forward, that she's just a little open at the base of her shoulder. She's a little too plain about her head and her neck shape and the way that it ties in up front. If we could just judge her from her shoulder back, I love that one. Up front, gets a little too plain and a little too open in her shoulder. The one blue roan heifer that's coming out here next, a little sleeker, a little flatter there in the lay of her shoulder blade, and she's just a little more refined about her head and her neck, and I do like those things about her. A heifer that gets a little too flat whenever you get up on top of them and get behind them for me, and she's just a little long-footed, and we need to change the shape of her foot just a little bit to go ahead and make her more competitive here in this class. And then another one that's bold-bodied and stout and has some muscle that we're going to round out with. Just wish she balanced up a little better from the side. And I think the biggest thing is her hip and her hind leg design throws her out of balance, because she gets a little round hip, she gets a little hook-legged. We need to change that about her, but I do like her power and I do like her stoutness, and you do a good job getting her shown out here. So congratulations on a good class of them over here on the Shorthorn Plus side. Nice job to you guys. Got a great division to work through over here on the Shorthorn Plus side, and I think 3 class winners in 3 seconds that come back in. I think all 6 of them have a tremendous amount of quality. I really like our front line over here, the one that started off our first class in this division. Rock solid fundamentally. She's moderate. She's a good rib. She's nice structured. Now you get her plugged in this lineup and get her in a little deeper water than she was in that particular class. Is that one just the wildest looking one out here in comparison to the ones behind her? Is she the most overwhelming one in any one area? No, she's probably not. Maybe she does run downhill just a little bit, and she's probably not as just extreme and striking in her look in comparison to the ones that come in behind her. But I'm telling you, I really like that one that wins that class. I think that one's got a lot of upside. One that comes out of that second class, that was the deepest class of this division, and top to bottom, I really, really liked a lot of those heifers in there. I think there was 5 of them. Hey, they were all 5 really nice, and I really like the pair of them that we bring back out here. This one is one of the most striking ones out here in our lineup. She is awesome in her neck set. She's great in her structure, and whenever she gets out and gets in motion, the set of her hip and her hind leg and the way that she gets out and motors, I think is awesome. I think she looks just as good going as she does standing still, and she looks pretty nice standing still. Maybe not just the most overwhelming one in terms of bone and feature. We'll talk about that one here in just a second, but I really, really like the quality level of that heifer that comes out of our second class. The one that's maybe the most overwhelming just in terms of foot and bone and feature and stoutness is the one that comes out of class 3. I love that one's rib, and I love her body type. And we talked about her in class where I really like her extra stoutness of structure, but I really like how it's assembled. She's awesome in her angle. She's great in the set and travel of her hip and her hind leg. Body shape is awesome. That thing's got an awesome look and design to her from the side. And so for one to combine that kind of look with that kind of extra power and feature and stoutness at the ground and still get out and go like she does, I think is pretty impressive. So I really like our set of class winners that we've got out here. For me, there's one that hits me just a little harder than the rest of them. If you would congratulate the young man that comes out of class 3 right here in front of me. He's got your division winner, and we'll get a better look here for reserve. Well, a really nice set of heifers here to pick from on our bred and owned side. And the two that are in contention out here on the front line, we got one that's really bold bodied and really stout and powerful. Like we mentioned in class, maybe tweak her in her structure just a little bit. The roan heifer that we talked about there was awesome from her shoulder back. Really like her build, really like her design. We talked about how we could see her just a shot neater up front, but I still love that one's build. I still love her structure. I think both these heifers, you can kick back and forth some of the advantages, but the young lady with the roan heifer is going to have your champion bred and owned here in this division. Nice job. Another really good class to kick us off here into this next division. The young ladies heifer up front. For me, this one's pretty clear cut here in this particular group of them. I really, really like this one just in terms of her body type and extra stoutness and substance, and still a real good looking one whenever you get off to the side of her. And I think whenever you get these cattle in motion is really where she separates herself in here. Her hip and her hind leg design is better than the rest of them, especially in her rear foot and ankle and hock and passer in comparison to the one that's coming in right behind them. And then you get right up on top of them and get in behind her. She's bolder, she's stouter, just with more power than the rest of them as well. She opens up at the top of her blade just a little bit, but other than that, I think that heifer's really, really nice. The side view profile of this heifer coming out in two, I like. Awesome in terms of her presentation. She's moderate, she's big rib, she's smooth, she ties just a little neater there at the top of her blade. In comparison to our class winner, she's not as good in the angle of her shoulder. We get her in motion, she'll want to pop up and get a little coarser in her tail head and get just a bit too rigid in her rear ankle for me in comparison to the one that we lead off with. Now the one that's coming out here in three, she actually sits down with more flex to her hock and her rear ankle in comparison to the one that goes out right ahead of her. For me, that heifer is just a little tight in her heart and forerib and a little harder in her body type, and I'd like to clean her up in her navel just a little bit, but I still thought just hip and hind leg design and structure and stoutness was a shade better than the one that's going to go ahead and round us out here. The one that's going to round us out is a good looking one from the side, neat necked, very refined up front, one that really pieces together very nice from the side in terms of the way that she blends everything together. For me, there's just not enough there. She needs to be bolder bodied. She needs to be more opened up all the way through. We need to stouten her up in her bone work and her feature just a shade as well here in a tough class. So congratulations on a nice job and another good set of them. Well, a good class, but for me, a class that's got some challenge to it. I do think, though, the Blue Roan Heifer that's going to go ahead and lead off, that is the one decision in here that I'm very comfortable with doing, because that is one good looking, striking, good balanced, high quality heifer from the side that in this particular group of them, I think just excels in terms of her look of balance, her body type, and then we get her in motion. She's still plenty good enough in her structure. I think for me, that's pretty clear cut in here to go ahead and lead us off. Now, after her, I think some decisions get very, very close, especially between 2, 3, and 4. And there are obvious advantages that you can find in the heifer in 2, 3, and 4 over each other. So, depending on what you want to do and where you want to lay your priorities, I think you could probably shuffle those up just a little bit. The one that I was probably the most comfortable with in getting second is the heifer that's coming out that's going to be here in 2. She's moderate, she's big bodied. I think the pair of them that are coming in 2 and 3 represent a little more rib and a little more boldness of center than the one that's coming in 4. And I still thought the one in 2, in relation to the one behind her, was an upgrade in terms of her structure. The angle of her shoulder, the set of her lower joint work was just a little more flexible than the heifer that's coming in right behind her. Now, for me, she gets a little frail in her bone work. She gets a little flat jawed, and I'd like to see her stouter at the surface. And really, that's where the heifer in 3rd has those advantages. And standing still, I probably like this heifer second, because she is bigger footed. She is stouter in her bone work. She's good looking from the side, and she's big ribbed, and she's big bodied. Yet, whenever we get her in motion of the top 4, and we talked about the decisions being close between 2, 3, and 4, of that trio, I thought this one was probably struggled the most in the angle of her shoulder, the set of her hip and hind leg. She's the most rigid one, that's the most restricted whenever we get them on the go. So depending on if you really like that one standing, I think she can get as high as second. We set her in motion, and I think she could probably get as low as 4th in here. The heifer coming next, I like her design of her hip and hind leg better. She's a little sounder in her structure from behind. She gets a little hard bodied. I'd like to peel a little bit of chest out of her, and she does get just a nickel straight there in the angle of her shoulder as well. But biggest thing is back off to the side of them, that heifer is just a little bit hard looking. The one that's coming out here next, bold-bodied and stout, and she's plenty muscular. We need to see her better in the design of her rear ankle. We get her in motion. She gets too short out of her hip. She really rolls up and wants to ankle up and pop her ankle just about every step. We need to see her set down with more flex and comfort there at the surface. The one that we're going to round out our class with maybe has that advantage right there, but I still don't know if her hock's quite perfect, and I'd like to change the design of her hip and her hind leg. Her top line balance isn't quite good enough, and it throws her off from the side. And so I think in a very, very tough class, this one just needs to balance up just a shade better from the profile. Thought a good class with a lot of discussion. Congratulations to those exhibitors. It's another really, really nice class of them over here on this side. And I do think there's a pair of them that you need to get up towards the top of this class pretty quick. And I think both of them are really, really good. And I think you can lump them in kind of the same mold as far as good bodied cattle that are good structured. I like the kind of cattle that they represent. And then whenever you get it down to those two and you get this look right here from the profile, that's where the one that wins needs to win. She's neater up front, her head carriage, she's better in her presence there up from her shoulder forward. She's better in her neckline, better in her chest floor, ties her neck higher at the top of her shoulder blade, and she's just a little neater there at the top of her blade as well. And I think that one, just in combination of the two of them that are good rib, good bodied, good structured, and the kind of cattle that I like, that one's got more look. That one's got more presence to go ahead and start us off. Now, the one that's coming out here in two from her shoulder back, I can get in on that one because that one is big ribs. She's got an awesome hip and hind leg. She's got a little extra stoutness and power to her whenever you get up on top of these cattle. I sure like that as well. It's whenever you get off to the side of her, she's just a little plainer there in her neckline. Her neck set isn't as good as the one that we lead off with, and she gets just a shade open there at the top of her blade in comparison to the one that we lead off with. Little things sort that pair, but I do think both those heifers are really, really nice. Now, from there, I thought it got a little more challenging, and there's some different types and kinds represented in the cattle that are coming out here next. This heifer coming next, her boldness of body, her extra dimension, and her hip and her hind leg structure, I like better than the one that's coming in behind her. Now, even though she's a little round-shouldered and maybe just a shot plain up front and rounder out of her hip, you set these cattle into motion, she's better in the squareness from her pin to her hock to the ground and just the comfort level that she has all the way to the surface in comparison to the black and white heifer that's coming right in behind her. Now, at the standstill, the black and white heifer, you can argue, is just a little sharper looking up front. She is just a little squared out of her hip. I like those things about her. A heifer that whenever we get her in motion, she doesn't set down with quite as much coordination to her hock and her rear ankle and wants to get just uncoordinated, I guess would be the best word to say there. Her top line balance, hip and hind leg design isn't quite as good. Maybe peeled just a little bit out of her neckline there, but still I thought had a little more punch to her than the ones coming in behind her. This heifer coming out next is really sleek from the profile. She's good looking up front. She's smooth shouldered. She's good in her pattern. That heifer for me needs more boldness, needs more dimension. She doesn't get out of her hock quite good enough with as much flexibility as maybe those ones up the line that like I'd prefer. And then the one that we're going to round out our class with, really not a bad heifer at all. And this young lady does a great job getting her presented out here. She's extended. She's sound structured. She just doesn't balance up quite as good. Her top line doesn't hang in her quite as good. Whenever she's on the move, she wants to pop up in her tail head. Doesn't have the same kind of design and presence as those ones up the line, but a good class of them there. Congratulations to those exhibitors.
I'd like to welcome you to the 2025 Charlotte Show here at the North American and introduce our judge today, Mr. Blake Nelson of Platte City, Missouri. Blake is the Executive Vice President of the American Mania and Jew Association. He grew up on a small eastern Oklahoma commercial cow-calf operation. As a junior, exhibited Brangus and Keith cattle. He started his collegiate experience at Connors State College and finished at Oklahoma State University, where he was a member of the championship lifetime W team and worked with both schools' cattle operations. After graduation, he had the opportunity to go back to Connors in 2000.
Well, this division has been phenomenal over here on the Shorthorn Plus side. I really like our three class winners. We got to work through three really, really high quality classes that were deep with good ones all the way through. And our front line out here, I think, represents a lot of high-end cattle. We started off with the one that wins that first class, and really all three of them that are out here on the front line, in my opinion, won their classes pretty easily. And then whenever we get them back out here, we can break them down just a little bit more. This one, from her shoulder back, I love her rib, I love her body. She's just as naturally bold and stout as anything out here, and she's got a really nice hip and hind leg, and that's what I thought elevated her in relation to the one that's over there on the back lineup. Now, we get her out here and we get her amongst these other class winners, and you may be questioning, and we talked about it in class, does she tie just neat enough there at the top of her blade? Is her shoulder going to stay in her good enough long term? And maybe you've got a little bit of a question mark on that, but I still think that one is a really, really high quality and definitely deserves a look out here. The Blue Roan heifer that won that second class, I thought that class was challenging, but it wasn't challenging to find that one, because that one is super high quality in her look and her design from the side. I think she's as striking in her balance and presence and presentation as anything that we've got out here. Now, you study her at the surface, and she needs more foot and she needs a little more bone. She's the frailest one out here of our trio that we've got of class winners. And then you get right up to a 3/4, you get right in behind these cattle. And my question in her, is she just quite stout enough? She's a little bit flatter from a dimension standpoint. And for me, I'd like to see her just a little bolder and more opened up and more powerful all the way through. But your look right here from the side really makes her a contender out here, because she is super, super high quality. Really liked our last class winner, and I thought there was a pair of them that you needed to get sorted up pretty quickly there in that class. And of the pair of them, our class winner, I thought, just took it to another level with look and extension and presence and balance up front. This heifer does an awesome job of combining the look that she's got right there with the kind of body type, with the kind of stoutness that I like. And then whenever we get her in motion, she's got kind of a bad attitude out here, and so she actually looks better whenever we get her rolling than she does standing still. I think that is a very, very high quality heifer out here in this lineup. For me, there's one that's pretty clear cut out here. I think it gets a lot closer for reserve, but if you would, let's congratulate the young lady that comes out of class 3 here in this division. She's got your division winner. Nice job. Wanted to talk about our reserve division as we get them back out here. I think it's very, very close, and really all three of these heifers, I think, can make a play for this reserve division spot. And we'll talk about that one. We already talked about our two class winners just a second ago, but we'll talk about our one that was second there in that last class. That was a really nice pair of cattle, and I thought they were very similar, and probably more similar than they were different, just in terms of having the same kind of rib cage, the same kind of structure, the same kind of body type, and good cattle. This one got to looking like me after I run about 40 yards, and she's not holding herself together very well. I think, honestly, I think if she kind of got cooled off and held herself together just a little bit more, honestly, I think it would be pretty clear cut that she would need to slide in there for reserve. And she is settling just a little bit in her neck and getting a little deeper there in her chest. But there is a lot of good in that heifer. And if my only excuse for that one is, man, I wish she was just a little bit cooler out here and holding herself together better, I'd say she probably needs to stay with that other one. That's a really nice heifer. Congratulations to the young lady that was second out of our third class. She's your reserve division. Definitely a lot of nice heifers over here on the Shorthorn Plus side. Again, I think quality top to bottom is very, very good in here. A lot of variation in terms of type and kind. But I do think the pair of heifers that need to come out in 1 and 2 are up here towards the top, and they get there pretty quick for me. Yet the black heifer that we're going to lead off with, just the most overwhelming one. I love that one's added rib cage. I love her added boldness of body. She's got some extra stoutness of structure and some feature to go along with it. She's just a little fresher haired in addition to that as well, which just kind of gives her a fresher look whenever you get right off to the side view profile of her. Now, the longer they stayed out here, I actually thought that pair got just a little bit closer because the young man's heifer here in second, she's got some advantages. That one, really neat chested, really neat necked. I think she's just a little longer and more extended there from her shoulder forward even than our class winner. For me, not as bold right there coming into her heart and her forerib. Doesn't have the same kind of rib cage and center body as the one that we lead off with. Even though I think she's plenty good enough in her structure, she does get a little frailer in regard to her feature all the way to the surface in comparison to the one that we lead off with. The red brockle heifer that's coming out here next, this one just kept growing on me because initially, whenever she comes in, you think, man, that one's just a little skinny and a little hard and a little streamlined in her body. But man, I'm telling you what, you really dig into that one's look and her balance and just that one's quality from the side. I think that one's got a lot of it. Now today she is a little green, she is a little skinny and hard bodied in comparison to the initial pair that we've got, but I do think that one, as she continues to mature, if she just gets enough to her all the way through the center portion of her rib and body, I think you got you a really good one there, young lady. I do. But today she's just a little hard, but I think that one's upside I like in her structure and her refinement and balance better than the ones that are coming in behind her. Little stouter, bolder one coming here, and the young man's blue roan heifer that's coming out next. I like that one whenever you get up on top of him and whenever you get in behind him. She's just a little open in her shoulder. She's not as refined about her head shape. We get her in motion. I'd like to free her up and see her just with a bit more flex to her hock and her rear ankle. Another one whose extension is pretty good out front, and the roan heifer gets a little hard-bodied, and we need to reconstruct the design of her hip and her hind leg. Same thing with the one that we're going to round out our class with. This heifer has plenty of power. She's got plenty of stoutness, and she's got some rib to her. We just need to balance her up a little different, and then whenever we get her in motion, really off both ends of her skeleton, we could see her just a shot sounder. But a good class of them there. Nice job to those exhibitors. Really a nice class of them all the way through, and these kids are doing an awesome job getting these heifers presented out here and up amongst the top end. Really a trio of heifers that we've got coming out in 1, 2, and 3. You can find an advantage for each one of them, but I really like the combination of look and balance of our class winner with structure. And then whenever you get these cattle in motion, I think she's got more substance at the ground. She's got a stouter and better hind leg than the one that's coming right in behind her. And so I do think her look from the side is very striking. I like her balance. I like her smoothness, and I like her refinement. Body type's good in her. Good set and stoutness to her hip and her hind leg to go ahead and lead us off. Not the most overwhelming one in terms of power and muscle, but that one does have a lot of quality, and I like her build the best. The one that's coming out here in 2, I thought maybe just a shot closer between 2 and 3, but I thought the 1 and 2 matched up with our class winner just a little bit better, just in terms of refinement and look up front. And even though she's a little frail in her structure with a little extra set to her hind leg, I would still call her more flexible and more functional than the one that's coming right in behind her. And so that's where I made that call to leave her over the red heifer that's coming out here in 3. Now, the red heifer that's coming out here in 3, this young lady's done an awesome job with this one, because standing still, that is one bold-bodied, stout one that's got a lot of dimension. She's extra stout in her bone work. She's beautiful in terms of her hair coat and her presentation. This young lady does an awesome job getting her shown, even though she doesn't want to cooperate. Her heifer doesn't want to cooperate just overly great. The problem with this one is whenever we get her in motion, she's just too rigid and she's too short in her step. And I think if we could maybe extend her and loosen her up off both ends of her skeleton, then we're pushing up just a little bit higher in this class, because standing still, I really like her. The one, the blue roan heifer that's coming out here next, you can argue that she's got just a slight advantage in length of stride from behind, but she does get a little frail, a little jammed up front, and her balance isn't quite as good. I'd like to see her neater and more extended all the way up through her front end. But this young guy does an awesome job getting her presented out here, giving me a good look. Just wish she had a little more extension up front. Then the roan heifer that we're going to round out our class with, I like this heifer too. Foot and bone's good. Her extension's good. She's got some muscle to her, actually, whenever you get in behind her. Wish she was a little softer bodied, a little neater chested to balance out just a shot better from the side. A good class of them, though. Congratulations to those exhibitors on an awesome job. It's a really, really good class to sort through here. I think four heifers, all of them have some quality. There's really some good in all four of these cattle out here. There were some close decisions out here. I don't think necessarily it was on top because this heifer that leads off, I think, is pretty clear cut. And in my opinion, she wins pretty easy. I do like that one's quality. I like her body type. I like her structure to go along with it. I think in this class, the one that does the best job of blending moderation, body type, look from the side, soundness of structure to go ahead and lead us off. I think she does the best job of that. Now, every so often, she can get just a little funny how she sits down on her back left ankle, and maybe you could criticize her there just a little bit. But of the pair of them that we've got, I do think these are the two better looking, more striking, more refined cattle that are just a little fresher from a condition standpoint than the ones that are coming in behind them. This one is substantially bigger ribbed and bolder than the one that's coming out here in two. Probably for me, the closest decision in this class came between 2 and 3. And you can go ahead and start circling that roan heifer out and around. They're very different in terms of type and kind. They have obvious advantages between the pair of them. I like the look, I like the presence, I like the freshness, and I like the hip design of the one that's coming out here in two in comparison to the one that's coming in behind her. I think that heifer's just a little more striking up front. I think she's just a little bit leaner in terms of her chest floor and her neck set. And then whenever you get right around in behind her, I think she's just a little truer in the way that she sets from her hock to the ground. Now, the heifer that's coming out here in third, she's got some pieces that I dig. You talk about one that's big-footed, heavy-boned, real stout in her structure. She's big-ribbed and big-bodied, and honestly, she's quite a bit better in her heart and her forerib with just more dimension than the heifer that goes out right ahead of her, and that was the problem with the heifer that was in second. She got just a little narrow built all the way through and just a little tight in her heart and her forerib, and this heifer here corrects that problem. The roan heifer does. My problem there runs downhill just a little bit. I'd like to peel a little condition out of her, and then if you would have watched her get out and go, her hip and her hind leg wasn't quite as good. She wanted to duck her pins, get outside of herself, and get outside of her body wall, and wasn't as coordinated in the use of her hind leg. Here's a heifer that really fell in a tough class, and young lady, you've got a nice one that you've done a good job with. You fell in one of the tougher classes of the day, really, because I like that heifer's balance and I like her look from the side. She just needs a little more rib and body and dimension and just gets out horsed in a really deep class. But you've done a great job. I want you to know that you got a really nice heifer that just fell in a tough class. Awesome job to all of those exhibitors. Well, I've been really impressed with all of our division drives today, and this one's no exception. I think a really good set of cattle that we bring back out here. Really nice set of class winners. The young lady up front does an awesome job with her heifer. I like her rib and her body. I really like her stoutness. We've got an extra good-looking one there that comes out of that second class that's really striking and awesome in her structure, and that's where she really separated herself there in that class. We had a really nice class that we just got to work through with, I thought, a really clear-cut winner that did a good job of combining a lot of things that I like as far as look and balance and freshness and body type and having the kind of rib cage and boldness and sweep and still getting out and motoring with still enough flexibility to her lower joint work. I thought that was a very good class, and really the trio of heifers that were represented in there, and really all four of them that were in that class, I thought were exceptionally good. And then for that one to go ahead and rise up and I thought won that class pretty easily, I thought was pretty impressive. I think we've got an awesome set of them that we've got out here on the front line. We've got a really nice set of second places. We'll talk them real quick. The young man up front with the red heifer's got a good looking one from the side, a little slicker haired and not as big ribbed. The one that was here that was second in our second class, very striking. Young lady does a nice job getting her shown out here, was just a little bit frailer and not quite as coordinated in the set of her hind leg. Extra good looking, awesome, balanced, refined one that the young lady was second with there in that last class, that I think just from the side, you can't draw them up much prettier there over there on the far side. I think an awesome set of them that we've got out here. I think there's a clear-cut winner. I think there's a clear-cut reserve. We already made the decision between them, though. The two young ladies out of the last class are going to be grand in reserve. Nice job. Well, a reserve overall in that division ended up being a bred and owned, so we're just going to pick a reserve bred and owned here in this division. And I want to take a minute to commend these young ladies on doing such an awesome job with their cattle. It's one thing to go out and get them gathered up and get them bought, but it's another thing to start off, make those mating decisions, calve them out, keep them in the barn, get them broke all year, and you guys have done a phenomenal job with that. I know that whenever my brother and I were showing, if we had anything that we raised, there was always that little extra bit of pride to it. And so I do want to recognize all these young ladies on doing an awesome job with that. For reserve out here, I think another one that we talked about that was a competitive class winner that was awesome looking, great structured. If you would congratulate the young lady that's here second in line. She's going to be your reserve bred and owned in this division. We've just got one here represented here in this class, but I'll tell you what, a single entry that's got some wild pieces to her. This thing's got a neck a mile long. She gets out and goes with a big stout hind leg that sits down soft at the surface. I think that one, again, has a lot of extreme neat pieces in her. Now, maybe you could change her just a little bit in the set of her shoulder, and I'll call her lower body good enough at best, and maybe you could like to see her with just a bit more drop back to her rear rib and flank, but that's getting really critical, one that I think is awfully good. We'll get to see her back in our division lineup here in just a second. Well, I think a class with about as much differences as we've had up here on the top end. And really, I think both of these heifers that are coming out in 1 and 2, I think they're both very good. I think they're both just good in different areas. Where I like our class winners whenever you step off to the side of them, and that heifer's just a bit more striking in her look and presence, especially up front. That heifer's just a little bit leaner and fresher from a condition standpoint. I think she's got more extension there from her shoulder forward. That's a heifer that I like the set of her hip and her hind leg at the standstill just a shot better than the one that's coming right in behind her. Now, whenever we get her in motion, she's just just a kind of little lackadaisical in the way that she gets out and goes, and just a little sluggish in the way that she uses her hind leg. And so, if you wanted to say, hey, could she grab a gear and just get out and go just a bit with more flex out of her hock? I think you could, but I still think that one's strikingness and her look of balance and her freshness allows her to go ahead and win. Now, the heifer that's coming out here in second, she is big ribbed, she's awesome bodied, she's moderate framed, all those things I really like about her. I don't question anything about her in making a really, really nice cow prospect. Now, for me, I'd like to freshen her up just a shade from a condition standpoint. She's getting just a little full chested, just a little bit big poned, and then even though she's maybe got a little more set to her hock, you watch her go, she'll pull her hock in, duck her pins, and kind of shuffle her hind leg outside of herself. And for me, maybe that one's just a little more on the small side than maybe on the moderate side, and she wants to get just a little more jammed up in comparison to the one that we lead off with. The one that's coming out here in 3, I think at the standstill, if you're just judging them there, I think you can justify moving her up a spot or two because she's really nicely presented. She's good looking. She's great balance. She's got more extension than the heifer that goes out right ahead of her. For me, I'd like to stouten her up just a little bit in terms of her head and her jaw. And then whenever we get her in motion, that's probably the biggest thing with me is whenever we get her on the go, she's a nickel straight up front. She wants to get just a bit tight in her rear ankle, and we need to set her down in her spine. We need to see her more flexible off both ends. The roan heifer coming out next is striking and good looking, just gets a shade hard and shallow, especially back through her rear rib and flank. She needs to be softened up. And then the heifer that we're going to round out with, she's got more rib and body, just a little too jammed up front, and she's not as refined. She's not as striking in her look from the side. Congratulations, though, on a really nice class of them there. Well, a good division lineup that we've got out here. Obviously, not as many head represented in this division as we've had some of the other ones, but I sure think the quality, especially the top end quality, is sure there to rival those other ones that we've already had through here so far. We've got a pair of class winners and just a single entry there that comes out of that first class, and definitely some unique pieces about each one of these heifers. And the one that wins that first class, our single entry that we talked about there whenever she came in, that one's got some really intriguing pieces, and she is very unique. She has got a super long neck. I love her extension there from her shoulder forward. She's neat necked. She's good chested. She's got an awesome hind leg, and she's stout in her bone work. You watch that heifer get out and go, and she reaches and flexes the way that they need to from behind. Now, we talked about her maybe not being perfect in the set of her shoulder and right there at the top side of her neck. She's maybe got just a little crest to her. She's not just one of those big sappy bellied ones, but I'm going to tell you about that one. The things that she represents, I'm interested in, and she's got some really intriguing pieces whenever she hits the gate. And that one, really, first impression, has some cool stuff to her. The one that wins that second class, and we just talked about her at the standstill from the side. She's awesome balance. She's probably just a shade deeper in terms of her body than the one than her single entry there that wins that first class. We get her in motion, and she just doesn't go with quite enough athleticism out of her hock. But I still think that one at the standstill, you can really appreciate a lot of things about. There's one of them out here that's just a little more intriguing to me. That one's going to be your champion up front, and then your reserve's going to be right behind. Well, this class is really, really good, and it is fun to sort. I'm telling you what, whenever these started hitting the gate, I knew it was going to be really, really tough because there's a lot of good ones in here. And I'm really, really high on the ones that are up on the top end of this class. And probably the closest decision for me was getting these two up towards the front, and then I think the subtle differences sort them. And I think, first of all, they're both very, very nice, and I think you can find an advantage for both of them out here. And yet, our class winner, she's just that much fresher, and she is just that much neater. Whenever you start up front, I like her head shape just a little bit better in comparison to the one that's coming in behind her. I do think there's some give and take in regard to structure. Our class winner sits down just a little square in her front foot, and I love the way that she blends from her shoulder into her forerib, the kind of boldness and sweep that she's got with that extra dimension. What's impressive about her for how bold and how stout she is, she blends everything together so well from the side, and I still think she's just a shot fresher in regard to her condition than the one that's coming right in behind her. Now, the one that's coming in behind her, she's got a hip and hind leg that I get in on real fast because that is a long level hip, an awesome set to her hock. She's got a great set at the ground. Her rear foot is really, really good. Her hip and hind leg design, I think, is phenomenal. Even though she might be just a nickel better in the angle of her shoulder and where her necktie is onto the top of her blade in comparison to the one that we used to win, she does want to toe in just ever so slightly up front. She wants to come up in her tail head. She's just a little longer headed. She's not as fresh from a condition and hair coat standpoint in comparison to the one that we lead off with. So just a couple little things that sort a very, very good pair that are going to keep her in second. Now the ones coming in 3 and 4, I thought that was another close decision as well. I like this heifer's structure. I like her angles. I like her flexibility, especially at the ground in comparison to the one that's coming in behind her. Now, she does have the right kind of body type. She does have the right kind of hip and hind leg. Now, of our top 4, she's a little plain deep-chested. She gets a little open at the top of her shoulder and doesn't hook up quite as well there right in behind it. And at times, she gets just a little weak in her spine, but I still thought lower joint work allowed her to get around the one that's coming out here in 4. Now, my man coming out here in 4 has done an awesome job getting this heifer presented. She is unbelievably good-haired. She is incredibly fresh. She is dialed in from a presentation standpoint. And let me tell you, I really, really appreciate that. In a very tough class, whenever we get those top 4 in motion, she's the straightest in the angle of her shoulder. She's the one that doesn't set down good enough in her hock and her rear ankle. She's got the smallest feet. I think if she had big, good feet underneath her, I think she'd probably set down just a little bit better than she does. But the way that it sits of our top 4, a little stilty up front, a little small-footed, a little rigid at the ground. Here's a heifer that extension is good in her, a little deeper chested, a little straighter shoulders. She's got too much extra set to her hock and maybe just not as attractive in the set of it as we work on down. Here's a really extended, another really smooth built one that's sound in her structure, slick haired, got a little extra navel, a little flatter, a little frailer, comes off just a little bit plainer, extra stout one that we just need to change her structure, especially from behind. Hip and hind leg design needs to go with more flexibility. But that class was awesome. Top to bottom, those exhibitors did a great job. Congratulations to all of them. Well, just like the last class, this one's again a really high quality set of them that are really fun to sort. Really, the initial trio of them that come out here, I think, all represent a lot of quality and really top end cattle in this class. I think are very, very competitive. The one that's going to go ahead and lead us off, that one is just overwhelming in terms of mass and rib and dimension and body. And where I like her better than the one that's coming out here in second, she's just a little stouter in her jaw. She's just a little stouter there in terms of her foot, and just the one that's the most overwhelming, like I talked about, in terms of her body shape and her extra dimension. And still, I think she blends everything together nice enough from the side. Now we get her in motion, and she maybe could maintain her top line with just a little more consistency, maybe freshen her up just ever so slightly from a condition standpoint. But that ever's really nice to go ahead and lead us off. The stock and footed heifer that's coming out here next, I really like her structure. She's pretty flexible and good in her angles. I like that about her. And if you wanted to say, hey, she's maybe just a shade fresher in her condition than our class winner, I could buy that. For me, she gets a little flat jawed, a little frail and small in her foot size, and needs just a shot more stoutness and power and just boldness and bulk in comparison to the one that we lead off with. I love this heifer in third from the side. She is awesome in terms of her refinement, her femininity, her freshness. Her structure is really good. Her balance, if we're just cutting out a silhouette of them, you could argue her winning the class. And yet, whenever you get off either end of them, for me, she's just a little closed up and flat and narrow. She's too hard and tight right there in her heart and her forerib. She wants to funnel too much to her pin set. And for me, for as awesome as she is from the side, and for as much as I like her from the profile, we've got to see her come with just more bulk and more dimension and stoutness all the way through. However, this coming out next probably has more dimension whenever you get right in behind her. Whenever we get her in motion, she wants to roll up in her top line, and she wants to duck her pins and get outside of herself and become too uncoordinated. The big blue roan heifer coming out here next. For me, I like that one's rib and I like her body type. We just need to freshen her up from a condition standpoint. She's looking just a shade stale. And then the one that we're going to round out our class with, standing still, I think is attractive, a little neater necked and a little bit leaner. But for me, she gets a little straight and rigid from behind, and we need to change her structure. Again, congratulations to all those exhibitors on an awesome class. Both the classes represented in this division were really good, and they were really deep top to bottom, and they were fun to get out here and look at these cattle and evaluate them and sort them. I do think the four of them that we bring back out here, all four of them may not just be cookie cutter alike, but I'm telling you what, all four of them are really, really nice cattle. I thought we had an awesome pair of them out of that first class, and the one that we led off with, just freshness and genuineness of shape and boldness of body with that kind of look that she's got and the kind of presence and freshness that she's got from the side. I really like that combination of the balance that she's got from right here with the kind of body shape, with the kind of genuine dimension that I really like. And we get her in motion, and I still think she's plenty awesome in terms of her structure to go along with that as well. We'll talk about her second place out of that class, and you go to the ground, and that is a big foot. That is an awesome hind leg, and her hip and her hind leg design, I think, reads with just a tremendous amount of quality. I thought her rib and body type and dimension was also on par with what I like and what we're trying to do. And I thought that was a really nice pair of them there, that it just came down to some subtle differences that sorted them. We just talked about our class that was our second class in this division, and a good pair of them represented there. Awesome rib, great bodied, overwhelming one that comes out of that class to win that class. And again, one that balances up plenty good enough from the side, really nice in terms of her hair coat and her presentation. We talked about maybe dialing that one back just a little bit from a condition standpoint and maybe fixing in her top line just a little. But I'm telling you, that is a really nice heifer and a really good looking one that's nice structured to go along with her, that was second there in that class. I do think there's a pair of them that fit together out here that are just in terms of look and balance and body type and structure and freshness hit me both pretty hard. The two young ladies out of our first class are going to be champion in reserve. Nice job to them, and congratulations. Hey, I'm here to tell you this is a good class of them here too. Depth of quality in here is very, very good. Top end, I think, is exceptional, and really the top trio or the top four of them, I thought were all very, very good. The reason our class winner wins is not only is she incredibly good standing still, but whenever you get these cattle in motion, she is easily the best built one of our initial set of them that we've got out here, hip and hind leg in particular. Whenever you get them out and get these things rolling, the length, the levelness of her hip is awesome. The athleticism that she sits down in her hock and her rear ankle easily makes her the most comfortable one out here. And because she's built so good, that allows her to balance up so good and so smooth from the side. I think that one does an awesome job of combining a awesome look standing still, great body type, but really what separates her whenever you get these cattle in motion, her structure allows her to go ahead and win. I thought 2 and 3 were close, and the heifer that's coming out here in second, great looking, super fresh, good bodied at the standstill. I love that one's balance, and I really, really like her proportions as well. Maybe change her just a little bit in the shape of her chest floor, and then whenever we get her in motion, she's not quite as good in the way that she gets out and goes with the same kind of flexibility as our class winner. You could maybe free her up in her hind leg and her hock design, especially to go ahead and get around the one that I used to win. The one that's coming out here in 3, again, all these heifers are very high quality, and I do think that one at the standstill, super neat looking, great design, level topped, awesome hind leg in her. Get her in motion. She's too straight and stilty in the angle of her shoulder. She's a little slicker haired. She's not quite as neat there in her throat line in comparison. Again, just little things are going to sort them. I really like this heifer too in terms of her stoutness of bone and her features. She's awesome haired. Young man has done a nice job getting her presented out here. Her lower body balance, where her chest sits in relation to her flank, isn't quite as good. And then whenever we get her in motion, she gets a little uncoordinated and wants to pop up in her top and throw her hind leg outside of her body wall. And that's where I change her as we work on down a nice looking heifer that needs more bone and stoutness and a little more rib. And again, one that's probably got a little more dimension to her, just doesn't blend it together quite as good. Great class of them there. Congratulations to those exhibitors on a nice job. Well, a good class and a good pair of them to wrap us up here on the Shorthorn Plus side here in this division. They're going to stand the way that they're going to be placed. The young lady's black heifer is going to go ahead and lead us off. I like this one's freshness. I like her extra smoothness, and I like her extra refinement in comparison to the heifer that's coming right in behind her. And I still think she maintains her top line just a bit more consistent whenever we get her on the move. I think her hip and her hind leg also works just a little bit better. The roan heifer that's coming out here in second, I think this heifer's got some neat pieces because she is huge footed, extra stout bone, really, really stout and powerful whenever you get in behind her. For me, she's getting just a little stale in her condition. I'd like to freshen her up there. She gets a little straight up front, and I'd like to see her balance out just a shade better from the side with some more refinement. But I thought that was a nice pair of them. Good job to both those young ladies. Well, as we come to the conclusion over here on our Shorthorn Plus side, what an awesome show that it's been. And first of all, thank you to the Shorthorn Association in the North American for having me out here. I've been really, really looking forward to this event ever since I got the call. And man, has it ever lived up to the expectation that I had for it. And no doubt, the North American is synonymous with awesome Shorthorn and Shorthorn influenced cattle. And I don't know of any place that you could go to find better ones. And so to get to be a part of it this year has been absolutely a phenomenal experience, and getting to work with everybody that I have on the North American side and all of our Shorthorn staff has just been a pleasure. It's ran like a well-oiled machine. All of our staff out here working the ring has been unbelievably great. Everybody lining up the cattle in the back. You guys don't get enough thank yous for the job that you do. I always look forward to coming out here to Louisville every fall for the judging contest, and it's one of the events that I look forward to every year, and getting to see incredibly good livestock of all four species. And so having the opportunity to come out here and step on the green chips and get to judge, I think is pretty cool. And I've got my whole judging team and my wife back in the stands, and I'm sure I'll get to hear about some of the things that I did really good, and maybe some of the things that we could talk about just a little bit here in just a second. But like I said, one of the events that I always look forward to bringing my crew out here every single year. And just like me, I'm sure these young people have a big crew behind them that are supporting what they do. And there is no better, I heard some of the other judges talk about it, there is no better activity to be involved in that you young people can get the good out of that you can in these barns right here. And so I wish you the best of luck. I hope you enjoy your time here at the North American. Thanks for letting me get to be a part of your day here. I'll go ahead and set this down, and we'll select your champion and reserve here in our Shorthorn Plus show all the way through all of our division lineups. I was super impressed, each and every class, really. And as they come back out here, what a set of cattle. You guys should be commended for that. So if you would, the breeders behind these cattle and these young people doing the phenomenal job that they've done, go ahead and put your hands together for them and congratulate them, and we'll get you a champion in reserve. Well, I mentioned it earlier in one of the Bred and Owned division drives that we were doing, but I think an awesome opportunity to get to recognize our Bred and Owned exhibitors out here. And we talked about just how much work and time and effort goes into this. I don't care if you're raising them or you're just buying them, but whenever you make those mating decisions, whenever you calve out those cows and you're thinking long term and thinking, man, I really, really hope this works. And then it comes together and you get a set of cattle like you exhibitors have done. I think that's pretty special. And I talked about earlier that my brother and I, whenever we were raising stuff that we were showing and got to show, we always had a lot of pride, no matter if we bought them or if we raised them. But I'm telling you what, if we had a Bred and Owned, we were super excited about it, and even had that much more pride with it. So I want to commend you exhibitors for doing an awesome job. One time, let's put our hands together for all of our Bred and Owned exhibitors, and I'll go ahead and get you a champion in reserve.